Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. My name is Wyatt, and today I'll be teaching you how to script a warn command on Roblox. Okay, so before I show you how to make this script, I just want to show you how it works. So all we have to do is go into the game, and as you'll see, what we can do is run our warning command in chat, and all we have to say is warn. We want to pass in the player that we'd like to warn, and then we say the reason, and it'll come up above their head, and then we can do this 2 more times, and then the final time we do it, it'll kick them from the game. Okay, so now that you know what the script does, I actually want to show you how to make it. So the first thing that we have to do before we can even get into coding this script, what we want to do is we want to create a warning GUI. Now all this is a GUI, a billboard GUI, and it has a text label inside of it. This is what's going to go above the player's head so that the players know how many warnings they have. So we just want to create that GUI like this, or you could grab the model from the description. I have it linked down there, but you just want to set up that GUI and then we can actually get into scripting this. So the first thing I want to do is I want to create a new script under script service, and we want to put our warning GUI that we just created underneath of that script. And I'm just going to name this script warn command, but you can name it whatever you like. And the first thing we want to do, we want to get rid of our print hello world, and we want to configure 2 variables. The first one is the group ID, so whatever group this command is going to be for, we want to put that in. And then the second one is the minimum rank to use command. So whatever rank you want to be able to run this command, that's what the second one's going to be equal to. So we'll say local group ID, and then we want to put in our group ID. I'll just put mine in, which is right here. And then we want to put in our minimum rank, so I'll say local minimum rank to use command, create that variable, and we just want to set this to whatever rank ID it is for the minimum rank to use the command. So maybe my minimum rank is 255, which in my group is owner, but maybe yours would be 2 or 3 or 54, whatever rank it is, you just want to put it right here. After this, what we want to do is we want to get whenever a player is added to the game, and the reason we're doing this is because first we need to clone this GUI right here into the player's head, and we also need to see if they're an admin or if they're supposed to use the command and then get when they actually run the command. So we're just going to say game.players, and then we're going to hook into the player added event of players, and we'll connect it up to a function. And then inside of this function, I just want to get the player, so whenever a player joins the game, we get exactly who that player is. And now what I want to do is I want to get whenever the player's character is added. And the reason I'm doing this is because I need to get whenever they reset or whenever they join for the first time, and I need to clone this GUI. I need to put it underneath of their head so that everybody knows, okay, the GUI is there so that they can get warnings. Not necessarily they will, but the GUI is there and we're ready to use it. So all we're going to say is player, and then we're going to hook into the character added event of that player. And then what we're going to do in here is we're going to connect it up to a function, and then inside of this function, all I want to do is I want to get the character that joined, the character that was added, and what we want to do is we want to clone this GUI, and then we're going to set the parent to the character. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to say local warning GUI equals script.warning GUI, which is our GUI right here, colon clone. We'll call the clone method of that GUI, and that's just going to make a duplicate of it, and then we want to set the parent of this duplicate to the player's character's head. So we'll say warning GUI dot parent equals character dot head, and that's just going to create it underneath the head just in case we do have to give the player a warning. After this, what we want to do, we're going to create a new line after line 8. We're going to come out of where we say player.character added. We don't want to hook into that anymore. What we want to do now is we want to get whenever the player chats. And the reason we're doing this is because this is how we're going to get when they run that warn command. Whenever they chat, we're going to read their message and see if they're trying to warn somebody. So we'll say player, and then we'll hook into the chatted event. So player.chatted. Connect it up to a function, and then inside of this function I just want to get the player's message, so whenever they chat we get exactly what that message is that they sent. What I want to do is I want to split the message, but before we do that I want to explain a function or a method of strings that we're going to use a lot in this video, and that method is the split method. So let's just say I have a string right here, maybe I call it local test string, and it's equal to maybe hello world. If we want to split this string into an array that contains 2 words, if we want to make this string look like this, hello, and then world, we can create an array with 2 words. The way we do that is we just say test string colon split. We call the split method of that test string. So we're going to use this a lot for parsing out arguments and figuring out what the player actually means when they run their command. So all we're going to do, I'm just going to delete those 3 lines I just created, and we're just going to say local split message and this is just going to be a variable for all of the different words in their messages split up. So maybe if they said warn and then they pass in the user, we could split that on a space and then we could get exactly what that was. So we're just going to say local split message equals message colon split, and then we just want to pass in the delimiter, which just means the character that we're trying to split it on. So we create a string and we say space because we want to split the message every time that there's a space. And now what we want to do is check to see first, is the player above the minimum rank to use this command? And if they are, then what we're going to do is see if the command is actually the warn command, if they're trying to run that warn command. So we'll say if player colon get rank in group, we're going to get their rank in that group ID that we specified earlier, so in the group ID variable. So if their rank in that group is greater than or equal to minimum rank, so if they're of that rank or if they're above it, and now what we want to do is check to see if they actually ran the warn command. So and split message 1, so the first word in that message, which in this case we'd hope would be exclamation point warn, is equal to exclamation point warn if they're actually running the command. Then what we're going to do in here, then we're actually going to warn the player that they specified. And the way we do this, we want to actually figure out who do they want to warn. What is the name of that player that they want to warn? And the way we do that is we say, okay, if the command is exclamation point warn user reason, then all we want to do is get the second word. We want to see what's the second word, and that's the person that we're going to want to warn. So we'll say local name of player to warn, create a new variable for this, equals split message, so when the message is split up by the spaces, by the words, 2, because it's the second word in the message. Now what I want to do, right now we have the name of the player to warn. So maybe if I said exclamation point warn orange dude 4221 test 123 or something like that, all we would have is orange dude 4221. We'd have orange dude 4221 as a string. What we need to do is get that actual player object. We need to figure out what is the player object, what is the player that's underneath players for this name right here. And the way we do that is just by saying local player to warn, so we're going to get their actual player, equals game.players, and we're going to find this player underneath the game.players. So game.players called find first child, we're going to find name of player to warn under players. So if my name is orangedude4221, this player to warn variable right here would be equal to game.players.orangedude4221. And I do that for any player, so this is just super easy for us to get exactly who the player is that we want to warn from their name. After this, what we want to do, we have one more variable I'd like to set up regarding the message, and that is the reason. We want to figure out what is the reason that the player actually warned the other player, and we're going to display that above their head. So we'll say local reason equals, and we're going to use that split function again, message colon split like this. And this time what we're going to do is we can't say we want to get the third word because the reason might be more than one word. It might be 5 words. So what we're going to do is this is a unique way of doing it. We're going to split the message on the name of the player to warn. So again, if my command was warn orangedude4221 test 123, well, we're going to split it here, and that means our first argument in the array, our first variable in there is going to be warn, and then our second one is going to be test123 because we're splitting it on this instead of a space. So all we're going to do, we're going to split it like this, and then we want to say we want to get the second variable from that. So that would get test123 in this case. If we were to say test, this is a reason, it would get this. It get whatever that reason is that the player specified. This is the way we get that and throw it into a variable. After this, what I want to do is I want to get that warning GUI that the player has underneath their head. So this GUI right here, but it'd be underneath their head. And the way we do that is we're just going to say local warning GUI equals player to warn dot character. So we're going to get their character dot head dot, you guessed it, warning GUI. And that'll get that exact GUI that we cloned earlier up here. And then what we can do with that GUI a little later on is actually set the text of that text label under there. So it'd be the same thing as changing the text through here, but it's easier to do it through code for us, and that's just how we have to do it in this case. After this, what we want to do is we want to hop out of the script for a sec, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new value underneath this warning GUI, and I'm just going to create an int value, and I'm going to name it warnings. And all this is going to do, all this int value is going to mean is the amount of warnings that the player has. Because we clone this GUI underneath of every single player, well, what we're doing is we're also cloning this value as well as the GUI, and this allows us to get exactly how many warnings they already have, so we know if we need to kick them or we know what to display on top of that overhead GUI. So you just want to create that int value under this GUI. Again, if you use the model, it'll already be there, but create the value under there, and then we can head back into our script, and then I just want to get a reference to this right here. So we're going to say local current warnings, because this is going to be equal to how many warnings they have. Current warnings equals warning GUI dot warnings, and that's just going to get a reference to this variable, and of course we're going to have to say dot value to get the actual value of it, but at least we have a reference to it, so now we can actually put that above their head and check if it's 3 and do all that kind of stuff. After this, what we want to do is we want to increment this value that we just got. So when we give them a warning, we want to add 1 to this. So if they had 1 warning, it'd be equal to 1, 2 warnings 2, 3 be 3, and then they get kicked. So what we'll do is we're just going to say current warnings dot value. We'll set the value property of that equals current warnings dot value plus 1. So we increment it by 1, and then we just want to set the text above the player's head to. The way we have it set up is W, and then however many warnings they have. So maybe if it was 2, it'd say 2. And then we put a dash there, and then we want to say the reason here. And the way we're going to do this is we're just going to set the text of this text label, of this warnings label. So we're going to say warning GUI, which would be this right here, dot warning label dot text equals, and then we're going to set the text as a string. So we want to say W, we want to abbreviate warning just by saying W. And then onto this, we want to add dot dot. We want to concatenate this string with the current warnings dot value. So warning 1, warning 2, warning 3. Again, we want to add another thing to this by typing those 2 dots. We want to put a dash. So it would be warning 2, warning 1, dash. And then we want to add one more thing, and then we just want to add that reason variable we created. So it'd say warning 1, and then it give the reason, and it'd be right above their head, so it's super easy to find for other players in the game. And then after this, we only have 3 more lines that we want to set up. All these are going to do is check. These are optional, so if you want the player to get kicked after they have 3 warnings when they reach their 3rd warning, then you want to put this. Otherwise, don't put it, but I think it's always good to automatically kick the player if they reach that max number of warnings. And the way we're going to do this, we'll create a new if statement. So we'll say if current warnings dot value is greater than or equal to 3, or however many is the maximum number of warnings whenever we want to kick them. I want to kick them once they hit that 3 mark, but if you want to kick them after they hit 3, you do 4 or 5 when they hit 5 warnings. I like 3 though. Then, so whenever they hit that maximum number of warnings, we just want to kick them, and the way we do that is by calling the kick method of that player. So we'll say player to warn, calling kick, and then in here we give the reason. I just like to say you've reached the maximum number of warnings, and that's why they were kicked. After this, all we want to do, we're all finished, we can head into the game to test this out. So all we'll do is we'll head in, and of course I am above the minimum rank and I'm in that group to run this command. So all I'll say is warn. I'll put in the username of the person I want to warn, and then I'll say the reason, and as you'll see, it'll come up above our head. We can do it 2 more times, and then you see the final time when we run it, it'll kick us from the game. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you learned something new today about scripting on Roblox. As always, I'll have the paste in the link with the code and the Roblox model link with all the assets shown in this video in the description, and I'll see you guys later.